America's ruling class is losing its mind over Zohran Mamdani, and they're attacking him with a single word.
This guy is an actual communist.
100% communist lunatic.
He's a communist.
But is he really? In this video, we'll break down his public statements, his actual policies, and what the word communist really means. We'll cut through the scare tactics and look at just the facts, and you'll see why experts and even Mamdani himself say this smear is way off. By the end, you'll understand who Mamdani really is and why this kind of attack hurts not just him, but every single working person. After Mamdani won the Democratic primary for New York City's mayor, the establishment zeroed in on a way to defeat him. Donald Trump opened the floodgates with this.
This communist from New York someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist.
Since then, other conservative and fascist lunatics have piled on.
A communist is likely to be the next mayor of New York City.
I mean, he's literally a textbook communist. He says he's a socialist. He's actually a communist.
This is very communist. This is beyond socialism.
Yeah.
But Mamdani has said repeatedly he's not a communist.
Are you a communist?
No, I am not. And I have already had to start to get used to the fact that the president will talk about how I look, how I sound, where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for.
Republicans are betting the label will stick, not because it's true, but because most Americans don't actually know the difference between socialism and communism. And what they think they know about communism? It's dangerous, evil, and even un-American. That brings us to the first point. Communism and socialism are not the same thing. Communism in practice is a form of socialism where the state owns and runs all business without private ownership or free markets. That's not what Mamdani is advocating for. Mamdani, like Bernie Sanders and AOC, is a democratic socialist. Democratic socialism is the radical idea that not everything needs to be a business. Democratic socialists believe that some things like healthcare, food, and housing should be run for the public good, not private profit. But they also believe that democracy should extend to the workplace, that businesses should be run democratically and owned by the workers, not non-working shareholders. Now, to be fair, this is a departure from capitalist orthodoxy, but our system already includes what can only be described as socialist enterprises. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the VA, fire departments, libraries, state and national parks, and public schools are all examples of socialism. And by the way, they're all super popular. They're owned and collectively run for the good of everyone, not owned by shareholders seeking the maximum return on their investment each and every quarter. Mamdani is not advocating for the widespread seizure or nationalization of industries or the end of free markets. He's calling for common sense limits to the free market and government stepping in where the private sector falls short. For example, all 5 boroughs of New York City have food deserts, areas that have limited access to affordable and healthy food, basically a ton of fast food options but no grocery stores, a clear public health crisis. Mamdani has proposed testing out just 5 city-run grocery stores to make sure people in those areas have access to healthy and affordable food. This is democratic socialism in action, a public service that is meant to fulfill a need to actually help people, not make people rich. If Mamdani were a communist, he'd want no private grocery stores, just state-run markets, and that's certainly not what he's proposing. Also, Mamdani has proposed a rent freeze on the city's rent-stabilized and rent-controlled apartments, which is about half of all apartments in the city. It's a common-sense policy that will protect New Yorkers from being priced out of their homes. A communist would be advocating for the seizure of all privately owned apartments to be owned and managed by the state. Again, whether or not you think that's a good idea or a bad idea, that's clearly not what Mamdani is proposing. But because of a masterful propaganda campaign over the past century, most older Americans think that would be a bad thing, and that's why Republicans think the attack will stick, and Democratic leadership still won't even endorse him. But here's the truth. This smear isn't just about Mamdani, it's about me and you. For decades, the ruling class has used the word communist to describe anything that could possibly threaten their wealth and power. A small chain of city-run grocery stores doesn't seem like a big deal unless you're a billionaire whose entire fortune was built on overcharging people for the basic necessities of life and then refusing to share that loot with all the workers who actually ran the stores. They know that if people see there's a better and more fair way to organize a society where everyone's basic needs are met, we won't want to go back. It's just like every other advancement. The 5-day work week, minimum wage, Social Security, even civil rights were all once called communist plots. So when they called Mamdani a communist for wanting lower rents and city-run grocery stores, just remember, they called our great-grandparents communists for wanting weekends and a retirement. The real shock isn't that they're lying about Mamdani, It's that they think this playbook still works after 100 years. They want us to think that having the basic necessities of life and not running everything as a business is un-American. But the most American thing we can do is refuse to accept the status quo, refuse to accept that life can't be better for everyone. For Notice News, I'm Andrew Springer.